Well, folks, here it is. As goes Israel, so goes the world, with none other than Avi Lipkin. How are you, Avi?
Fantastic. Praise God. Good to be home. Good to be enjoying our holiday of Passover and getting ready for the next 2 weeks, which will lead up to the Independence Day. And if you ask me, what is Independence Day in Israel? It's having a barbecue out in the forest. The whole country is in the forest. Nobody's home. Everyone's in forests.
Wow.
We have our 1 or 2 popular places, and the extended clan is about 50, 60 people.
Wow. Wow.
So we're all out there in the forest. By the way, no pork chops, only kosher meat.
Yeah, no pork chops. Normally when I hear about a bunch of grandkids, hey, I bet that's quite a Christmas. Well, Avi, I don't think you celebrate Christmas in your house, but that's okay, my man. That's all right. But you have a beautiful family, and it is growing as well. You mentioned, one of the children, so to speak, to ask the questions. The Passover was over 6 feet tall.
Well, I was saying, hey, listen, I don't mean to bug you guys. Now, don't be angry with me for saying this, but I say to my kids, I don't even care if you get married or not. I want great grandkids. You're all too big already. I can't pick you up in my arms and tickle you and kiss you. And I mean, these girls are army age now.
Right. Oh, wow. And, when you say army age, a lot of people don't realize that isn't every citizen required to do 2 years in the IDF.
Well, actually, in the case of my granddaughters, one is going to be an officer, hopefully in the Air Force. The others are religious, so they do national service for 2 years.
Wow. There's a lot of times people will see these young, beautiful ladies in a prom dress or whatever, but they'll be holding an AK-47. I mean, I admire the warrior culture. I mean, it is a necessity, with all the attacks that Israel is supposed to contend with. No other country in the world would put up with that.
Right.
But because of the bias of the UN and the left, they expect Israel to endure countless attacks with minimum retaliation. And then when there is retaliation, they're the bad guys, and you got 50 media people surrounding one staged mourner, and no one wants to address the real issue that Iran is funding terrorist groups, and such as groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and others, and it is a real problem. But what it has created is a people that are war ready, a warrior culture, and they're also ready to take shelter when they need. But they don't stay in shelter; they fight, and that is of course the great land of Israel and the country of Israel. So anyway, with all that said, you've been celebrating these celebrations right now. In the midst of these celebrations, are there still paid protesters in the street, or has that waned off a little bit during this time?
It's gotten less and less. Netanyahu held a press conference last night, and so immediately they said there was this massive demonstration, a spontaneous, massive demonstration in Tel Aviv with about 300 people.
Yeah. Spontaneous, as long as their Cash App works, right? Sounds like Antifa and BLM over here, when they're paid by the DNC terrorist organization. But anyhow, with all that said, is anyone addressing the fact that these protesters are being paid, or is it like over here, we all know what the case is? It doesn't matter, talking about it. What do you think?
Well, the report that I received today was that the State Department actually is funding the protesters in the streets. And the New York Times came out with a report that the Mossad, Israel's top secret spy agency, is being funded by the U.S. To promote the demonstrations in the streets of Tel Aviv.
Well, I tell you what, this current administration seems to be on the wrong side of every endeavor. People still don't know the truths of what's happening right now. But you know what? I'm really glad that you're there. You continue to be a voice and a leader. The only organization of its kind that is bringing together Christians and Jews and even the Messianics and the Bible Block Party. I've never really talked to you about it before, Avi, but where do certain Muslims stand in regards to some of the views that you have? Are they leaning more left, or are they seeing the need for for a more harmonious scenario. A lot of people don't realize. I mean, you quoted a large number of Muslims in Israel that get along just fine with everybody else. So, what's the situation there?
Well, I would say that without generalizing too much, I believe personally that the Muslims in Israel are very happy in Israel. And the fact is, when you have 6 million Muslims living with 7.5 million Jews and Christians, if the Muslims were not happy, we would have a civil war,
Right.
fighting in the streets and thousands of people being killed every day. And instead, I don't want to say a handful, but we have a handful of terrorists. The Israeli intelligence catches them, sometimes after the killing of Israelis, innocent Israelis. But eventually we catch everybody. And the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, even in Gaza, it's really very quiet. Every so often, some crazy lunatic terrorist organizations, not Hamas, which is also crazy lunatic, but the
Right.
smaller rogue maverick Palestinian organizations in Gaza fire some rockets, and we kind of swallow the excuse the expression in military terms, we swallow the shit in cubes and don't respond really in a way that could bring about a major war. Because what Iran wants now is a major war in which Israel is attacked on all fronts, by Gaza, in Jerusalem, in the West Bank, from Lebanon, and from Iran. We have 5 groups that are trying to coordinate a massive united attack on Israel simultaneously. And so what Israel is trying to do, and I think in one way the United States may be helping, the United States sent a nuclear sub into the Persian Gulf because the Iranians were saying they're going to sink tankers and what do you call it, cargo ships in the Persian Gulf. And so the American government is not very happy about that. And so I don't know if the submarine is there already. I don't have to tell you, I don't know where they are, but I don't have to tell you that Israel has subs also somewhere under the water. And so I think it's been made very clear to Iran that if they make the disastrous decision to attack Israel, that might be their last decision as the Khomeini type government is. And there may eventually be an overthrow of the government in Iran. I think that's actually what we're all praying for. We have nothing against the Iranian people. They're good people. The problem is, by the way, there's nothing wrong with the Palestinian people. They're good people too, but their leadership is crazy.
Well, and of course they continue to get millions and millions of dollars, the leadership. There's that old graphic, of an Israeli soldier standing in front of a baby stroller firing a gun, but there's the Hamas operative standing behind a baby stroller,
Right.
firing a gun. There's a whole lot of lining of pockets. It seems in every facet of government there. Do people on the street in Israel consider our administration as much of a joke as we do? I mean, do they not see that these kind of scorched earth policies are pushing China and Russia and Iran closer together? And who would have thought Saudi Arabia in certain cases? I mean, what's the public perception of this puppet administration that we're experiencing here in America?
Well, the United States has been broadcasting weakness. One of the examples, of course, was the fleeing from Afghanistan without taking out the American weaponries. Now in the news today, the United Nations said that they have to choose between shutting down and or firing the women who are working in the United Nations relief organizations. In other words, the United States basically is allowing the Taliban government in Afghanistan to make sure that girls don't go to school, women cannot work. The highest suicide rate of women in the world is in Afghanistan because the women are prisoners in the country, and even the UN cannot operate now.
Well, ultimate cowardice, abandonment of our own soldiers as well. Thousands of America-friendly Afghans left behind to be slaughtered, raped, and the unspeakable by the Taliban. And even when there's a school shooting, the first thing out of this puppet's mouth is about the transgender community, being more sensitive to them. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't think we can go even lower than we have. It's never
There was
been.
another report today in the media, which is hard for me to believe, but I heard it, and it could be the Egyptian military industries. Now, Egypt at this point is not an enemy of Israel. I mean, we have a
Right,
peace agreement.
right,
We're sending them natural gas. They are liquefying the natural gas and sending it to Europe, which is,
right.
an allied type of behavior. But it was in the news today that the Egyptian military industries are sending rockets and missiles and dynamite to the Russians in their war against the Ukrainians, but they have to keep it secret. But somehow the word got out. So this is what happens when the United States is messaging weakness to the world. Even a country like Egypt, which is in the American camp, is going with the Russians or with the Chinese. And Saudi is going with the Chinese and Iran. And one of the things I've been sharing, a very important point, the Sunnis, Sunni Muslims, they hate the Shiite Muslims even more than they hate the Jews.
That's what I was about to say.
I've been saying, I think I said it in the last show, is that this might be the fall of the Saudi kingdom to ISIS. Because ISIS is saying, if the Shiites are blasphemers and heretics, then how can the king of Saudi Arabia do business with Iran and establish relations with the heretic Shiite regime of Iran? This might start, I believe, nobody's saying it, but this might start a civil war in Saudi Arabia, which ISIS is going to win. And it'll be the end of the Saudi royalty, and ISIS will be taken over. ISIS will take over Saudi Arabia, and then they'll take over Jordan in the same way. And then Israel is going to be faced with ISIS on all its borders.
Forever it seemed, there was some type of comfort, as strange as it sounds, in the fact that, well, the Shias will never unite with the Sunnis. So, this biblical attack against Israel, all the nations, well, that's not going to happen for a while, if ever, because of this deliberate scorched earth self-sabotage administration that's owned by our enemies, World War III is closer to the front door than it ever has been. And
correct.
What can we do? You voiced some concerns about the situation towards Jews in America as well, and so beautifully illustrated the difference between the Jews who fought in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War are not the same Jews that advocate for the left and advocate for policies that lead to their own demise.
Right.
I mean, do you think there's ever going to be an awakening of the truth? Anything short of Hashem himself, blowing the enemies of Israel yet again, to the heavens. I mean, people don't even know the 6-day war. They're learning that men can have babies, and our joke of a public education system, this Marxist ideology that now, it stinks to high heaven. Our universities have never produced more ignorant young people of history. It's all politicized. It's a horrible, horrible situation, but it's also always darkest before the dawn. I mean, is there a silver lining here, Avi? Do you have any encouragement, to your friends and to those who love and believe in Israel?
Well, obviously, I am in the pro-Christian camp, and I believe that America does have a chance because the statistics remain the same, that 70% of America's population claims to be Christian. And so you've got these illegitimate forces in Washington, D.C., who I believe stole the elections and are behaving in a way which is against the real meaning of what it is to be an American.
Right.
And the greatness which made America is Christianity. And I'm a Jew who says, I'm not a Christian, but I believe that it is Jesus Christ who makes America great. And at some stage, I believe there will be such a strong reaction, such a strong revival, that America might be socked to its socks. But America eventually will wake up. I'm a little more concerned at this stage about the treason of the people here in Israel who refuse to serve in the army and refuse to serve the prime minister and are not loyal because they follow a socialist or a one world government agenda and they're being paid for it. So I'm very concerned about a civil war in Israel at some stage. I pray to God it doesn't happen. I will say, for Americans who are wondering, well, what does this all mean? The demographics in Israel are in favor of the religious and the nationalists. And the socialists represent about 10–15% of the population. But they have had a rock solid control of everything in Israel for the last 100 years. They don't want to give up their power. And that starts with the Justice Ministry, with the Ministry of Justice and the high courts, Supreme Courts here in Israel. So it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out in the coming weeks, because when the Independence Day holiday passes in 2 weeks, the Likud people are saying either we find a compromise on the Supreme Court issue, or we're going to ram it right through, and that's when you're going to see people rebelling, in the streets, maybe leading up, God forbid, to a civil war. So I'm very concerned about. I'm much more concerned about that. I am concerned about a civil war in the United States too, but I think God is going to have more mercy on the Americans than He is going to have on Israel. So I really ask all the viewers and all the listeners of this program to pray for God's mercy on Israel also.
Me as well. It can be discouraging sometimes, when
very hard. Yeah.
The powers that be that are the loud minority control the media, can obviously control elections, obviously control so much. Is anything short of a civil war, short of a revolt?
I have to tell you a little story. I don't know I think I mentioned it once on one of your shows, but I was in Texas, in Fort Worth, in the stockyards. There was a big Christian conference for Israel. And there were some very top Israeli political leaders from the Knesset, ministers in Israel's government. And I was there and I spoke. And there was actually a reporter from the Israeli TV Channel 1. And after he heard me speak, he said, "How can it be that we don't know who you are in Israel? You are such a good speaker," he said to me. Yeah. "I'm going to get you onto Channel 1. Did I tell you the story?
No, you haven't, but I'm not surprised.
And so he started yelling at my wife. Rachel was there. And he said to her, "Why do you hide your husband like Cinderella? Whoa. He should be on Israeli TV." And I said to the reporter, "It's never going to happen because I'm on the blacklist." And he said, "Oh, there is no such thing." So anyway, we went back to Israel after the summer. And then I think it was October the 6th, 2006. There's a whole hullabaloo about the Pope, Benedict, actually was a good guy. And he was talking about a correspondence between some Persian prince and the Byzantine Emperor Emmanuel Paleologos in 1389. And he was quoting from a letter from this Byzantine emperor who was saying, if you talk about Islam, you're talking about murder and torture and destruction. So all the streets in the Islamic world rose up in riots against the Vatican, and they had to push back and say, no, he wasn't saying it himself. He was just quoting from a historical document, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I was in Israel, and this TV reporter said, "Avi, come right now to the TV station. We're going to have you on." And about 5 minutes before broadcast, the phone rings in the green room, and I can hear the director of the TV yelling at this reporter and saying to him, "How can you have Avi Lipkin on TV? Haven't you checked out who he is? Don't you know who he is?" And so he said to her, "Listen, it's too late to cancel it now." And they fired him.
I tell you what, this leftism overplays its hand. I don't know if you've seen that happen much in Israel yet, but over here in America, this woke is broke. And these companies still make these boneheaded decisions towards leftist ideologies and censoring true conservative voices. Talk about suicide. And recently this Anheuser-Busch issue with this this dude in a wig and who's mutilated his body, calling himself a woman. A lot of pushback. The mainstream America is tiring of having leftist ideology and, quite frankly, Baphomet worship shoved down their throats, even down to the grooming of children. I mean, it seems like one party is about everything vile and evil and anti-family and anti-country. And it seems like America is getting a little tired of it. We'll see what happens. Are you finding any type of rising anger towards this same globalist ideology? And
well, like I said before, the Israeli approach of the right wing, to which I belong, obviously, is that demographically, from election to election, our numbers increase in the elections, and the numbers of the left wing or one world government people decreases. And Biden actually is putting his bets on the losing horse, but it's a question of time. So my hope is that there will be no civil war, and let the demographic trend continue.
There's this not crypto, but this digital currency that people don't seem to want to think about. March 9th, 2022, Biden signed an executive order, the most treasonous executive order of any president. You're not hearing about it, of course, on the state-owned media, but basically attempting to do away with cash, and every dollar you spend being monitored. And if they don't like how you spend it or who you support with it, they can turn off your ability to do banking. It's digital surveillance, a central bank. Is there any buzz about that in Israel? Because July is coming up, and some believe that they're going to try to institute this, after a crash. Any news of this on your front?
Not at all. Life just goes on here in Israel. By the way, I saw something in the news today that Texas is instituting a gold-backed cryptocurrency. You heard about it. So is it true?
Leave it to Texas, good old Texas, the Republic of America. That's right. Yeah, you gotta love Texas, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear about that. It's still amazing to me. I do a show called News You Can Act On with Brigitte Gabrielle, another one of your fans. And, it amazes me how we risk our lives to bring people to truth, and still 34 million evangelicals didn't even bother to vote. And I don't know, sometimes it can be discouraging, but you're an inspiration, because nothing seems to stop you, Avi. I mean, the Bible Block Party. Folks, I want you to go to Avi's website right now and get behind what he's doing. BiblicalAlliance.com. And that's a very friendly website. You can buy books. You can support Avi's endeavors, the Bible Block Party. You can donate to what he's doing. So many churches in America love Avi. They love his incredible work. And he's a very strong encouragement, a very lovable guy. Just ask his wife.
Don't ask my wife.
I knew you'd say it, man. I knew you'd say it. Behind every, my friend Benny Prophet, First Priority Global. He says behind every good man is a surprised wife. Well, behind every amazing man is an amazing woman, and I know that, and I know that in your case as well. But I'm grateful for the work that you do, Avi, and of course for your writings too. But anyone who buys a book or books you to speak or donates to your operation is helping the chances of a Bible Block Party right there in Israel. And I'm just grateful for people like you that stand against the tide, and you're not swayed.
I'd like to say something if possible. Well, you let me say anything I want, but the last 3 weeks, I have been paying my lawyers their retainer fees. We came to an agreement because it had gotten to $45,000 debt that my party owed the lawyers. And they said, you know what? I said, you should be working pro bono. And they said, you know what? Pay us $22,000 and we will call it, a day. No more, debts. I've already transferred to them in the last 2 weeks $18,000 I have
Wow.
another $4,000 to pay them on Monday, and with that, the Bible Block Party is debt free. But we still have to raise money for party activities and campaign. So if people can stand with us financially, that would be great. There is a donation button there in the Biblical Alliance. People should also buy my books, CDs, and DVDs, but people can make donations, and I need every penny now.
Well, you've stood strong against the tide, even when you're on an administration, government is saying, hey, you'll never work in these sectors again because of your conservative views. Who would have thought, folks? Or well, maybe you would have thought. The Bible is true. And
Amen.
yeah, it is. And history tends to repeat itself. Some people say that. Some people say that people just keep making the same stupid mistakes. But we are watching biblical prophecy come true. Like it or not, folks, the Bible's true.
You want some news from today? They found in Jerusalem near the Western Wall. They found it 10 years ago, but it took them time to decipher it. Do you remember the Queen of Sheba?
Yes.
And King Solomon?
Yes.
Well, there was a piece of shard or shards of a big vase, which described the spices that Queen of Sheba had sent for Solomon's temple in 1000 BC. The shard is carbon dated to 700 BC. So this also proves the veracity of the Bible and that the temple really was there.
Well, of course. And, those who pay attention understand that archaeology proves that the Bible has always been true.
Amen.
Yeah. So, doing this and this and this, folks, doesn't make the truth go away. The Bible is true. And the sooner you realize that, the better off you're going to be.
Amen.
But it's very, very important that we stand together against evil.
Christians have to understand that Israel belongs to Christians also.
Right. Well, a lot of misinformation has happened, and especially again in our Marxist school system, that gives a different version of it's not history, it's his story. That these evil people were disrupting the very peaceful scenario during the Crusades. And some bad things happen, folks, without a doubt. But they don't talk about the centuries of terror and darkness that precluded that. You need to get the whole picture, folks. You need to get the whole picture. And I hate to say it, but some angry blue-haired Nazi teaching your kindergartner that they should be a different gender is not the source of truth. The Bible is the source of truth. And you need to read it, and you need to seek its author because it remains to be true, and archaeology continues to prove it true. But I'm so grateful for you, Avi, for another great As Goes Israel update. And everyone go to the website that you're going to see on your screen, support the Bible Block Party and Avi Lipkin. And folks, we'll see you next time on As Goes Israel. See you, my friend.